In this video, I'm going to show you how you can work with blending options and also how you can change your background image. First thing first, I downloaded 3 images from the internet and placed them in the file. I want to scale them. I'm going to hit the Control T, and right now I will be scaling the blue image. I'm on the blue layer. We can see that it is highlighted blue, and now I know that this is the image I'm going to be scaling. Holding Shift from the side, grabbing one of the 4 corners, I'm going to scale it down. And then just putting my cursor inside the box, I can move it around the canvas. When I'm happy, I hit enter. And I'll just go ahead and do that the same with the other ones. Holding Shift, grabbing it from one of the 4 corners, moving it up, and hit enter. If you want to flip the direction, just make sure you're on the correct layer, and you can go up to Edit, Transform, and flip horizontally. If you would like to move your layers around and have the blue bird in the front, just click on it, select it, and drag it up. Now we can see that there is not transparency on this object. I'm going to zoom in. And you would use your selection tools. You can go around it with your polygon or lasso tool. Or for this one, I can probably get away with using the magic wand. And Control D, deselect. So here I have 3 different birds, or 2 birds and 1 duck. And what I want to do now is add some blending options. I'm going to right click over on the side where it's blue. So I'm not clicking on the actual word, I'm clicking over to the side and go up to the very top, blending options, and you will see a box. If it comes up in the middle, just click on the top and drag it over. You have options here: bevel and emboss, stroke, inner shadow, inner glow, satin, color overlay, gradient overlay, pattern overlay, outer glow, and drop shadow. I'm going to work on a couple of them just to show you what they can do. I will work on a stroke. So you want to click on the word. You don't want to just click on the check mark. If you click on the word, you get the options on the side here. I'm going to change the color to white, and bear with me as I go through this because you're not going to see much of it. I'm going to adjust the size. So right now, I'll type in 10. So I have 10 pixels of a white stroke. You can see a little bit of it here. And then what I want to do is I want to click on outer glow. So again, I click on the word, and I'm going to change it from screen because screen is a light to normal. Normal will be its full tone. I'm going to change the opacity up to 100% so you can see it. Double click on this little color swatch, and I'll change it to black. I'm going to now change up the spread, and I'll go quite a bit so you can see what that does. And then I'm going to change up the size. So here we have it quite drastic, and I'm just going to change down the spread so it's a softer tone. And now I'm going to double click and add a gray. I'm finding the black a little bit too dark. And then when I'm happy, I'm going to hit OK. You can also work on a different style. Let's add a drop shadow to this bird. I'm going to click on the word drop shadow, and I'll put it up at normal. My opacity at 100%, and it's at dissolve, so I'll put it as normal. Change up my distance. So here we can see there's a drop shadow to it. If you want it a little bit more realistic, you can change your opacity down. You can bring the distance in a little closer. You can change the spread. You can change the size, so if you want a little bit more blurrier. You have a lot of different variables. You can also play around with your blending modes. Overlaying, so from one image to another. If you want to work on coloring from this bird to the next bird. And I'll just keep it back at normal. So we have 2 different blending options at the moment. Let's say that I prefer this one and I'd like to duplicate it to all of my other layers. What I can do is I can click on the duck layer and I can right click, copy layer style. Then I can go to my other layers and I can right click, paste layer style. So it's removed the previous layer style and it's adding the new one. And now all three have it. And this is where you can really see if your cropping is not to perfection. And I can see that there is a white here. So what I'm going to do is on the yellow bird layer, I'm just going to create a selection and delete that. Control D, deselect. So all these images were downloaded from the internet and they were all supposed to have transparency. I did not crop any of these out. And you can see that whoever did originally crop them did not do the best of the job. Let's go back to Bluebird. We can probably get away with the magic wand because of the solid white background. Hit delete and Control D, deselect. So we have our three. I'm going to add a little rotation. Control T brings up my transform box and I'm just going to rotate it to the side a bit. Just to remind you again how you rotate. And I can scale while I'm here as well, holding Shift. And I can also use the Move tool and move objects around. I can hit the first object, Shift click them all, and move them to the center. Now what I want to show you is how you can work with your background. I'm just going to collapse these. And how I did it was clicking on the arrow. And the background, we can do color fills, we can do gradients. I'm going to double click on this black. I'm going to turn off the only web colors and I'll pick a green, just a nice bright green so you can see how we can create that background to a green. Going up on your menu here, on the sidebar there's a paint bucket. It usually actually is hidden behind the gradient tool. So if it's like this, you just hold it down and click on the paint bucket. Make sure you're on the background layer and click. And that's all you have to do and you'll have a green background. If you don't like it, easy enough to fix, double click, find another color and click again. Now I'm going to show you how to make a gradient. So we're going to hold this down, go to the top of the gradient, and here is our gradient selection right now. Because I have a foreground color of green and a background color of white, this is my default gradient. If I'm going to change this to, let's say, black, my gradient has now changed from green to black. I can also go up here and I can have the system default gradients, the different options. I can have a green to transparency and I'll explain that in a minute. But for now, I'm just going to pick the foreground to background. I also have linear gradient, radial gradients, angle gradient, reflective gradient, and diamond gradient. And you have your opacity, you have your reverse dither and transparency, and your opacity values. So there's a lot you can play around with. And I'm just going to make an angled gradient. So went from the green to the black. If I want to go straight down. And let's just change the whole black, the background to a black. Just for example, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to go to that paint bucket. So you cannot see the other layer because it is below a solid filled layer. And now what I want to do is I'm going to change my color to white. So you can see that it's white to green. I'm going to go back to the gradient tool and I'm going to click on this one. So this means if I paint in white, there's going to be white to transparent. What that means is if I paint, it's going to be white to black because black is already here. If I create a new layer, it's even easier to see this. And there you have it. So you can see the white going on to this grayish tone to a black. If I turn off both of the background layers, you will see that there is white here and these little squares represent transparency. And if I turn it on to the background where we had white over top and then we have the green to the black. If I turn off the white, you can see that it is that classic background that I made a few steps back. And that is all you need to know.